Welcome everyone. Happy Wednesday. I'm the Strega and I'm here to give you your daily collective read for today, Wednesday, November 27th, 2024. What do we have coming through in the cards for today? May I please have the first 5 cards in our 5-card spread? First 2 cards we are starting our day off with today are, gotta see this one again. We saw it yesterday. It's fine. We've got our 8 of Swords in its upright in combination with our Judgment card in its reversal. This is okay. This is the type of work that we want to see. Remember, what did we describe that we were talking about that is occurring during this particular retrograde cycle? It's frustrating because it's all about identifying obstacles. Identifying obstacles can feel like the most frustrating work, right? Because And this is what is so important about it. It is fundamentally important to remember that the first step in overcoming an obstacle is recognizing that it is there. So I want you to move in a space of gratitude right now if you're identifying what those energetic obstacles are, because a lot of that observation is the first step in relationality to tackling it. But this is the important part. This is the important part. Listen to me when I say you can't be overwhelmed in the process. You can't be overwhelmed before you begin. And a little bit of that energy here, that's the navigating of the frustration that we're seeing right now. It's not easy. It can be really frustrating. For some, it's going to be the internal aspect of recognizing how you're standing in your own way. For others, it's going to be feeling that sense of externalization outside the self and what you're effectively facing or how you're trying to navigate something. This is also having a different impact depending on where you find yourselves on the frequency cycles right now. For masculine and feminine, deep within divine union, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. A lot of this work is working on the pathwork of the deepening of intimacy to a certain degree. And this is the reconsideration point of energetic obstacles. Why do we see energy right now, deep within divine union, recognizing and looking back on the past with different optics? Because this is the gift of the present. When we're in the present, we can see ourselves from the past with greater clarity. We can see our own obstacles. We can see our own limitations. And this is why so much of this work right now, it feels triggering, because a lot of that work, that feeling of the frustration with the self, may arrive in the process of recognizing that when you identify, when you are frustrated with yourself, you're already in the pathwork of changing the self, right? It starts with getting frustrated. It starts with feeling that volatility point. It starts with the catalyst, right? It starts with that catalyst for change. So there's a lot of this energy here that I want you to recognize that if you're feeling frustrated, remember that you can change and that you are changing and that you're always changing. Now, masculine and feminine energy, deep within divine union, we saw and recognized, and we're going to probably pull more cards around this shortly, because the one thing we saw that was conveying heavily is how these messages are being translated by the different energies. For feminine, it's creating more, it's channeling that frustration point into something that feels like it is tangible. There's a lot of activation that we were seeing that was occurring right now with feminine energy. And it has a lot to do with that sense of like not allowing oneself to stew in something, but allowing that sense of working through something, like the frustration that allows for change. So we see a lot of this energetic activation. Now some of that frustration point is the feminine, like wanting to find, like working through the energetic hurdle of what to do with that frustration, right? Masculine, there's much more introspection that we saw that was occurring right now. There's a lot more of that emotional unpacking that we're recognizing and identifying is happening right now. Why is that happening? Because there's a lot of masculine energy deep within divine union. That feeling of energetic security, that feeling of energetic safety to a certain extent, it creates more of that feeling of protectiveness, right? it feels a lot more of that feeling of energetic protectiveness. Now, both of, and I have to say, for a lot of the masculine energy right now, and this was coming through heavily. If you're, and we're going to talk about this as we talk about the energy coming into divine union. Let's talk about releasing regret. Because regret does not allow for, like, regret is that space or place of looking at something and wishing that something could be energetically different. But in that modality of recognizing that one holds regret, it's in that moment that you're looking at the past version of self and immediately saying, I am no longer that person. Right? Regret is the poison that heals us to a certain extent in that way. Because that ability of looking back and feeling that sense of energetic sorrow for something, that change into the present, that context of not allowing oneself to dwell in the space of regret, but allowing for that point of activation, letting that regret fuel you forward, right? Allowing that to be the context of change. Well, that changes everything. And that's what we talk about even here with some of this retrograde energy. This is how some of this retrograde energy can be very, like, positive. The retrogrades do not necessarily need to be there. This is the step. This is like the step, like sometimes we take one small step back. Did you ever notice something? I need to point this out. Did you ever see a running start? Like, what do you do when you do have a running start? Do you just launch yourself forward? Do you just launch yourself forward from where you are? No. Right? When you're about to take a giant leap, what do you do before you take a giant leap? You take a step back, right? You take a step back. You energetically prepare yourself to a certain extent. So being able to utilize energy in this fashion, being able to recognize and identify the value and context in energetic preparation to a certain extent, it requires that ability of looking backwards, but not getting caught in that moment, but allowing for that sense or space of propelling oneself forward. Now, for a lot of the energy right now, I see even now that that's why that feeling of energetic propulsion to a certain extent, having a different impact on masculine and feminine. Because for a lot of the energy right now coming into divine union, the gravitas that has entered the picture of the partnership, the reality, like the harsh reality that was coming to bear for some energy right now with this Taurus and Scorpio, the recognition of how much something means was the density and the weight of something was the amplifier of some of these energetic connections coming into a deepening fruition. And so that gravitas, that magnitude point, even here, we see that this is energy of the masculine looking back on the past version of self, potentially even in spaces where you ran from that. But now you recognize and you hold the prioritization point for it. This is a lot of this energy that wants to move forward very quickly with it, because that is the articulation of the masculine holding something in a high degree of preciousness. While for feminine, that same modality, that same feeling is creating more of a sense of care. It's creating more of a sense of conscientiousness. It's creating more of a sense of trepidation. So we see even now that there's a little bit of that energy, that there could be some argumentation points in the bickering between how one carries something forward. Do you rush it ahead or do you move with intentionality? So, but even here we see that the breakthrough that's occurring is the recognition point of the disputing about the way you carry something instead of the argumentation as to whether something exists, right? So even there, we see that this is bittersweet, because even in the modality of something reaching a breakthrough point in the breakdown of argumentation, it's the recognition of how far you have come. While for energy right now in separation, I see a lot of this, like there's a lot of introspection that's occurring right now for energy in separation. Why is there, and I need to point this out, this is healthy introspection, right? This is not energy that's looking back on the past from a place of longing, right? This is energy that is looking back from the past because they've moved away from something and they can see something from the proximity that they couldn't see before because their eyes were blindfolded. So it's like, again, that feeling of energetic regret sometimes sets your orientation because you're able to see something with higher perspective as it relates to where you are. So if you're moving forward and you're looking back and you can see something that you haven't seen before, it's usually a good sign that you're moving in the right direction. third card in our 5-card spread for today, center card of our reading, is we've got here our moon card. So we'll welcome to Pluto in Aquarius. So a little bit of that sense or that space of understanding, working through how one navigates uncertainty, how one navigates the unknown, what one does in that modality, right? This is a little bit, we're also feeling like a lot of this shift, like it's really important to recognize the beautiful coincidence of us moving into Pluto going into Capricorn and then Mercury retrograde showing up, because there's a lot of introspection and relationality to how far one has come and what has changed, right? It's peaceful, but some energy might not feel like it's peaceful. It may feel more frustrating, right? It's dense. Now, for the energy and separation, this is why navigating this is so important. Let's unpack it, right? Because that modality, right? And this is what you have to be very conscientious of. That modality of recognizing and understanding and understanding that one can never have perfect clarity in all things, right? Perfect clarity, that's why we always say hindsight is faulty, right? Hindsight is faulty because you can never have the hindsight point in the moment that you're actively within something. And so even in that modality here, that recognition point of hindsight to a certain extent, even exploring that territory, I see even now a lot of that energy in separation, looking back on something with a sense or a space of energetic curiosity as it relates to the unknown variables of circumstances or situations, right? Because what happens when you look back on something and you see something in a different way, it creates that sense of uncertainty in relationality to what you effectively experienced versus what was energetically occurring. So we see even now a lot of that work. I almost see that this is also a form of closure that's occurring here for some energy and separation, because the amplification of love is clarity, right? And so if there's energy right now that's looking back on something and saying, I guess I'll never know, right? This isn't the energy going, I guess I'll never know, but I'm going to go back to the past to find out. This isn't the energy of running back to the past with a magnifying glass. I can see a lot of this energy and separation saying the past was energetically confusing. And that's why I'm glad that I'm here in the present, right? This is the energy going not that everything is clear now, but it's the energy, I see even now the energy and separation is seeking partnership, not to amplify confusion, not to create more confusion between, but to navigate the energetic confusion together, right? There's enough confusion. Nobody needs to make additional confusion right now. Is kind of the vibe that we're getting. It just, so, and in that way, I see that experience of not building into that sense of appreciation, of recognizing, and this is why I see a lot of those energies in separation, building new energetic connections via the introspection of the past. Because this is not the articulation of someone introspecting on a past that they desire or long to return back to. This is a type of energy that puzzles over it, because the feeling of puzzling over it creates that sense of understanding the self better as you move forward, right? This is the energy rifling through the closet looking for a flashlight kind of thing. While for masculine and feminine energy, and this is also why there's that trepidation in building the new energetic connections, because this is the energy that is very conscientious of that to a certain extent as well, right? While for masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union, a lot of this energy that we're seeing right now coming into divine union, this is I just keep seeing a lot of energy being I didn't expect it to feel like this. Like, I just keep seeing energy coming into divine union going, I didn't expect it to feel like this, right? Because a lot of that modality, I have to say that so much of this energy coming into divine union, and it is having a different impact on masculine and feminine. Some of it is moving away from circumstances or situations that felt like they were energetically self-limiting. And those are either the limitations found within the self, getting out of one's own way, if you will, or building into a connection of trust with another. That, like, you're healing, like, the thing with healing trust is that you don't have certainty as to what will occur next, right? Like, that's what's hard with trust. Like, that's what's hard with trust. Trust requires that step into the unknown to a certain extent. But what do we see that is happening right now for so much of this energy doing so? They're having breakthroughs, but it doesn't create a feeling of security in the process of having the breakthrough, right? It's not like the energy being like, oh, good, now I know everything's going to happen. Everything's perfectly fine. It's that feeling of moving into the unknown because they're coming through into new territory that they haven't explored before via the healthy energetic partnership, right? Like, and this is the energy that's like, this is some shadow work energy here, right? Healing trust can be very triggering to shadow work, right? Because when you have to trust something, what you're basing, and we were talking about this yesterday, strength, the card we're going to be studying on December 18th. Bravery is not doing something with full confidence that you know something's going to work. Bravery is when you do something and you're absolutely flippin' terrified. Right? Like, bravery is when you do something and you go, I don't know, like, you're trusting your own intentionality and you're letting that guide the way. And these are the energies coming into divine union right now. Even in that space of argumentation, like, that profound mystery is coming forth in the sense of feeling the differentiation between what they may have anticipated and expected a manifestation goal to feel like versus what it actually does. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, deep within divine union, a lot of this work that we're seeing deep within divine union to a certain extent, a lot of this is articulated and built upon that space or place, if you will, of recognizing and understanding and building upon a lot of this work of deepening energetic intimacy. And I'm just seeing that for a lot of that energy doing that work, that deepening of intimacy is such that it almost like immediately triggers shadow work, because so much of that sense or that space, like when we move into a more intimate connection with counterpart, we immediately move into a deeper exploration of the self. So we see even now a lot of that introspection that is occurring here. Next two cards in our 5-card spread, before we start getting clarity on these cards, we have here our Justice card in its reversal in combination with our Page of Wands energy. Now, this is beautiful because it's saying to me that there's a lot of articulation right now based upon and built upon. This is like inner child wound healing. There's a lot of inner child wound healing that I'm seeing right now for energy deep within divine union. And I have to point this out. The reason some of this inner child healing, the reason some of this, the reason some of this inner child healing, is icky, and that's why I'm getting so many of these, feelings about it, is that it requires one to identify and recognize, modalities of, energetic unfairness to a certain extent. So, a lot of this work that we're seeing to a certain extent, so much of that identification point, it feels like things that are avoided, right? I can see this. This is like energy deep within divine union, being able to navigate or articulate around things that are energetically hard to talk about. And potentially even from very far energetic past work. But what's important, and I have to say this right now, a lot of that, and it does feel like a little bit of this energetic release of shame. Why do we see that there's, that's why I'm making all these faces and I'm reading for this. Because like when we energetically release shame, it's like something like, ugh, like you don't want to talk about it. You're like, ugh, you know, like it's uncomfortable, right? It's like I told you, it's like that thing that you avoid to a certain extent because, you know, you don't even recognize or identify what it is because like that's how much you energetically avoid it. You know what I mean? Like, you know, like I'm getting you're like navigating the ick. You know, like navigating the ick to a certain extent. And so, but here's the thing. A lot of this energy within divine union is embracing one another from the context of saying to the counterpart, there's nothing about you that's like, I can see the energy almost saying to one another, there's nothing about you that's ick. So what is it like I can see like what is it that's so ick that you like, you know what I mean? Like there's like a lot of that here. And this is what I mean about that deepening of healing, because this is the energy that's working through that ability to articulate upon something in such a way that like even in the ability of doing so, it feels like a context of relief, because it's like that moment when you're holding something and then you let it go and it's like, oh, that was much lighter. Like that, like, you know, I can see the counterpart almost being like, that was it. You know what I mean? Like a little bit like that. Well, for masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now, how are you guys doing? How you guys doing? Different than you expected, huh? A lot of changes here. I keep seeing there's a lot of inner child healing that's happening here, especially for masculine energy. Especially for masculine energy, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Because if this is energy coming into divine union, I keep getting the difference between what something looks like on the outside versus what looks like what it looks like on the inside. I'm getting like the vision of like, you ever seen stained glass windows? You know, like they look all shiny on the outside, but then when you're inside the church, you can't see the stained glass. So there's a lot of this healing that I'm seeing right now for masculine in relationality to saying like, oh, I don't have to be someone different to be within this. It just looks different inside of it. It's a lot bigger on the it's like a lot of this work in recognizing all of the work that goes into that space or place of what feels so simple. Like there is no simple energetic connection. There is no perfect harmony in an energetic connection. There's always muddiness. Well, it's you know, I kept on saying swan energy. I kept on saying swan yesterday instead of wands, because we get this message of the swan that comes through, because like the swan looks like real easy on the surface, right? It looks beautiful and graceful. You don't see the mud. You don't see the mud that gets kicked up as it's like beating its legs to be able to create that glide, right? Anything smooth has a lot of like that work that they're doing underneath, right? Nothing is energetically easy. And if it looks easy, it's probably because someone got really good at making something hard look effortless. So we see even now a lot of that energy coming into divine union, recognizing and understanding the work that it takes, like behind the scenes, if you will, like behind the scenes, because behind the scenes, everything feels like you're just putting it together as you can. You're grabbing whatever you have and you're making the best with it, right? While for masculine and feminine energy, I see that a lot of energy right now is healing from energetic connections where someone did not realize that. I see that there's a lot of energy right now that's healing from a lot of these situations from the past, and looking at someone and saying they were navigating something like a child would. How would a child navigate something? A child doesn't understand what it takes to make something work the way it does. They just expect it, right? Like they just expect it. They're like, oh, it's just, you know, it's not how I expected it. Like, you know, and when they don't get it the way that they want, they can get very volatile. We talk about this, the difference between childish and childlike. So I see even now that there's some energy right now healing their inner child by looking at past experiences wherein they were feeling limited or feeling like they were navigating hurt. And they're healing it by looking at something and saying, everything makes sense if I look at that energy from the context of an unhealed child, which is a child that looks at something and just expects it to be the way that it should be, instead of recognizing and understanding the work that needs to go into having something be what you want it to be. Right? So we see even now that there's a lot of energy in separation healing via the attentiveness of understanding the difference between wanting something and being ready to work towards something. Continuing to get clarification between our Eight of Swords in combination with our Judgment card in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with Emperor in its reversal. A lot of healing right now that's occurring, particularly a lot of work right now happening for masculine energy, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Masculine energy, I'm going to say this again. If you're looking back at your past versions of self and you've got notes, congratulations. If you're looking back at your past version of self and you're saying, wow, that person was a dope, congratulations. That's the healing path. Like the healing path, like that's spirituality for you in a nutshell. You're gonna look back and be like, that person I was a dope. That person I was a week ago was a dope. That person there's gonna be notes. There's gonna be notes, right? There's gonna be continual notes. And what's beautiful about this, and I'm seeing even now that for a lot of that energy of masculine and separation right now, that path work of forgiving oneself, moving towards things, being the perpetual student. Right? I see even now, like this is a lot, I told you, a lot of the work yesterday that we saw with masculine was recognizing what happens when the ego dominates the situation. The ego is important when we use it like a little shield. When we've got a little shield and we kind of like use it to like navigate blows, that's great. But if the shield becomes too heavy, if it becomes too rigid, we lose the person behind it. It becomes a wall. It becomes an impossibility aspect. So it becomes like the automaton that can roam around unchecked, because the ego is operating the self and not vice versa. So we see even now that a lot of the masculine energy is working on removing their armor as they come into a connection, and that ability of doing so is not the masculine saying like, I'm just moving into things unprotected. This is the masculine energy saying, I don't want to get in my own way. How can I have the relationship I want if I'm not being the person that I am? How can I find the person that's for me if I'm not being my authentic self when I find them? So we see even now, like this is a lot of that journey of the masculine that's building towards counterpart and finding themselves on the way, because this is the masculine that's moving towards feminine and removing their armor as they do so. While for feminine energy right now in separation, a lot of this work is trying to heal from past experiences of masculine wherein that may have occurred, without holding the assumption that all the masculine energy coming towards them is in that modality. And that's hard because this is masculine, this is feminine picking up energetic shield. This is feminine energy holding an energetic shield towards masculine and saying, I would prefer not to have this energetic shield, but I got to be conscientious. I got to be careful. I have to be protective. My compassion is a gift. And a gift is recognized and appreciated as something that I am giving, not something that is energetically expected. And so we see even now that a lot of these energies coming into new energetic connections that are happening in this space, there's slowness here. There's slowness because trust is something that is earned. And the only way to earn trust is by recognizing consistency. So these are the energies that are giving each other the gift of time. While for masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now, a lot of this work that we're seeing with the energy coming into divine union right now, I'm just recognizing and identifying, I'm going to say it again, a lot of, and it is having a different impact on masculine and feminine energy. Masculine energy potentially moving into divine union and having that modality of being like, I didn't expect it to feel like this. Why do I feel like I'm moving into divine union and I feel like a child, right? Why do I feel like a child? Because a child feels safe. Right? When we feel safe, we can allow our child selves to emerge. So it's not that modality of having to move away from oneself. This is the masculine energy that's doing that work and healing the energetic connection and building forth in the quality and context of healing the childlike, not the childish, right? because childlike is wonder, it's joy, it's delight. Childish is frustration, demanding, dissatisfaction, right? So for a lot of the masculine energy, this is masculine coming into divine union, feeling that sense of like, that's why there's eagerness here. Like this is like the masculine energy trying to run to rushing to like the joy point, because this is a masculine energy that's looking at the past version of self with a lot of notes, and at the same time building into that space or place of finding like the prioritization point. I see even now like there could be like that modality of the masculine that finds that like their own appreciation of like what has significance has changed in such a way that like they're moving through things and it feels like they're almost becoming energetically younger, because they're coming into that space or that path work where they're not holding the prioritization point so much on the external as they are the internal. While for feminine energy right now coming into divine union, this is a lot of the energy, this is triggering. This is much difficult, this is much harder, this is more difficult for feminine. Why is this more difficult for feminine? Because for feminine, that modality, feeling that point, recognizing the ability of the masculine healing, it can trigger those experiences in the past wherein the feminine was not building into that context, amplifying that joy. It reminds the feminine of those modalities or those places and spaces wherein they themselves were not appreciated, wherein they themselves were not seen. So this is a little bit more of that energy of the feminine navigating frustration as they move deeper into energetic connection, feeling both like letting go, I want to say letting go of bitterness in the process of moving towards their joy, because this is the energy of the feminine that's coming into the deepening understanding of moving with someone that's in that specific space of building with energetic counterpart as opposed to demanding from. While for masculine and feminine energy, and this is how the feminine's healing coming into divine union, the recognition of the energy that feels the childlike energy that's willing to expand and learn, versus moving away from the childish nature where it requires or demands things to be the way that they want them to be. Continuing deeper into divine union right now, for a lot of the energy going into divine union, deeper in divine union right now, this is just a lot of emotional unpacking. There's a lot of introspection here. There's a lot of I want to say even unconscious surfacing, if you will. But a lot of like that unconscious surfacing is actually allowing for breakthrough points, because the comfortability in the intimate connection is such that like that feeling of like, it's that feeling when you feel the comfortability of being with someone without artifice, it allows you to come into your truest version of self. It allows you to express things that you haven't expressed before. So this is a lot more of that like deepening energetic intimate connection that's happening here, even around circumstances or situations that are more difficult to articulate. Continuing to get clarification between our judgment card in its reversal and our moon card in its upright. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Six of Swords in its reversal. I like this energy right now. I know it's heavy. I know it's difficult. But this is the heaviness that when we bring something forward, it becomes lighter than air, right? Even here, a lot of this energy deep within divine union, the beauty or the gift of saying to someone, this is heavy, something I carry is heavy. The counterpart saying, nothing about you is heavy. Nothing about you is heavy. Immediately, healing comes in many forms, and that's one as well. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now. This is the energy feeling the weight of partnership. And so if this was energy that was like, oh yeah, an energetic connection of this nature will just be easy. No, it's quite the opposite. Like the energetic connections that look easy are not easy because they're easy. They're because the energy is invested in making it easy. And when you are invested in making something easy, hard becomes subjective, right? And so we see even now, this is the energy that's recognizing the paradox of that ratio, if you will. recognizing the actual weight it takes to carry something that may have felt dysregulated in the experience of not having it. While for masculine and feminine in separation right now, I just see a lot of energy letting go. But in a positive way, right? There's nostalgia here, right? And there's even like a recognition of something that is frustrating because one does not have the full breadth of understanding on it. This is why we hold on to the past. This is why the past confounds us. The past confounds us because we leave that the past that we carry karma on is the past that we don't understand. The past that weighs on us are the eternal questions. So a lot of that ability of recognizing and amplifying and feeling the weight of saying, if something created questions in me, that in itself is valid as without providing answers. Like this is the energy feeling validated in moving away from something, because that's the energy saying it was confusing. It was energetically confusing, and it didn't try to create clarity. It just created further density. And so we see even now like a lot of that energy healing by just accepting the nature of something being energetically confusing. Confusing places do not provide clarity. If something only creates confusion, this is the energy saying, I never saw clarity there. It was just giving confusion. And if I was looking for clarity in a confusing place, that in itself is a form of closure. I can see energy going, the reason I feel confused is because I was seeking clarity in a confusing place. And so there's a lot of energy that's just like healing in that way, that's allowing them to kind of move in the context of moving into another connection. Continuing to get clarification between the Moon card and the Justice card in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. One card is our Wheel of Fortune in its reversal. So this is a little bit of the heaviness that we're working through right now, because a little bit of this work that we're seeing, it has to do the retrogrades. They're slowdown moments. Like everything feels like it energetically stills to a certain extent, right? That's not necessarily a bad thing, because there can be a lot of productivity that occurs in modalities when things are going slow. Utilize go with the flow. Go with the flow. Right? And I know that's easier. I mean, like, listen, I don't mean that like in a way that makes it feel like it's easier said than done. I know that. But like the ability to amplify like the end, like, and that's like, you know, sometimes you can be like, sometimes you can change the energy in the room. Sometimes you can be the energy in the room. So we see even now that a little bit of that work that we have that's happening right now, particularly in this retrograde, this stillness that it's eliciting, is creating a sensor space of contemplation, right? It's creating a little bit of that rumination. It's creating a bit of that introspective. Like that in itself is the energy of the retrograde right now, because it's the slowing down. But I like this because they're saying it's like the slowing down, but it's not a stepping back, right? It's like a lean back. It's not a step back. It's a lean back. Because sometimes, and we talked about this yesterday, it was coming through the reading. When you're too hyper focused on something, you can't see a darn thing. You become very myopic, right? When you're really like, this is the thing with intentionality and manifest. Like when you're focusing on something, like that's all you can energetically see. Sometimes, when you step back a little bit, you give yourself a little space, the solution comes to you. You're like, I just needed to take a walk. I just needed to step back a little bit. I just needed to get a little bit of energetic perspective, right? So by being able to like effectively navigate that, taking that step back to a certain extent, getting that perspective, for a lot of the energy and separation, I see that this is creating a lot of closure that's allowing for new energetic like closure comes in many forms. And that ability of being able to step back far enough to get some perspective on something, this is how the energy is healing. And even in the articulation of something, I can see some energy saying, you know, I couldn't see it at the time. Right? Like I see some energy going, I couldn't see it at the time. In hindsight, like I can see someone being like, in hindsight, like ball, like right there. But you'd be surprised, like a little bit of that energy and recognizing and understanding that some things we can't see until we get further away from them. So even here, this is allowing for a lot of clarity and closure as energy moves into new partnership cycles. masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union. A lot of this work that we're seeing right now, this is the energy that's saying, I did not expect it to feel this way. I did not expect it to feel this way. And either that is the external experience, right? Or I did not expect to feel this way. That is the external experience of what it feels like to be in the energetic partnership. It's not that everything's smooth sailing. Things look smooth. Like things look smooth, but when you're when you're on the ship, like the ship might look good. The ship might look good from a distance, but when you're on the ship, it's rocking like crazy. So like a lot of that energy, that reorientation, if you will, the feeling or the difference between what the manifestation goal felt like up here versus what it feels like when you're in it. This is a lot of that energy that's recognizing and understanding the disparity between energetic dream and reality. But that's not necessarily a bad thing here, because this is the energy that values the gravity of that shift, if you will. While for masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union, a lot of this work that we're seeing coming into divine union deep within divine union, I just see even now a lot of energy invested in the understanding of the self to allow for an ability to move through, this is some heavy stuff here. This is contemplation on pathwork and purpose stuff, right? There's like a lot of contemplation of the grand plan, the grand scheme of things, And I want to say that the easement point of the energy deep within divine union is the ability to kind of think about the bigger picture to a certain extent. That can be bittersweet. It can be hard, but it's also valuable. And the gift that the energy is giving one another, if this is energy that is agonizing over the moment, this is the energy that's almost giving each other the gift of perspective by helping one see the bigger picture. Continuing to get clarification between the Justice card in its reversal and our Page of Wands in its upright. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Seven of Wands in its upright. We like to see that here. This is feeling, there's and this is having a different impact on masculine and feminine. Feminine is much more actionable right now. The feminine is more in that modality of looking towards how to navigate frustration, creating greater easement, thinking about that bigger picture to a certain extent. This is the feminine energy getting very, getting very protective within that space. That's why we saw so much of that Queen of Swords popping up, if you will. That was a lot of the energy of the feminine to a certain degree. Really thinking in a different way and becoming more energetically protective. While masculine right now, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, this is the masculine energy being much more in that space of, I want to say, more of that feeling of being the energetic perpetual student to a certain extent. And this is a return to a reading that we had a couple weeks ago, which is how are these energies helping one another right now during this journey? Feminine building into that point of confidence. Masculine not saying to feminine, I know what's best for you, but I want what's best for you, and I trust you. I trust you to trust yourself in that process. While for masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now, a lot of this work that we're seeing to a certain degree, this is the energy that is coming into divine union and recognizing the disparity in what one expected something to be versus what it actually feels like to occupy it, right? And there's a lot of this adaptability here, and this is why I see even now a lot of the masculine energy. Not I want to say I don't want to say they're not trying to control the flow, right? This is the masculine energy feeling the security of building into a partnership wherein trusting the counterpart allows that ability to enjoy something much like one would a child, because you're not trying to control every aspect of it, right? It's like healthy play. Well, for feminine energy, that ability of seeing the masculine, when the masculine, like when the masculine does not try to control everything, the feminine feels most love. Because that's the masculine that says, I trust you, right? I trust you. I want to help. Like, I want to, like, I am, and this is the feminine recognize me, like, I'm pulling against my own desire. Like, the feminine does not miss this for a minute. The feminine being like, I'm pulling against my own desire to control something because I'm coming towards you in a space that I want to amplify the desire to play is actually like what's coming through here. Like when you play well, you can't control everything. So there's a little, I told you, this is the inner child healing. So this is that joy of coming through. And this is why if there's collaboration energy here, this is how the energy is taking something oppositional and they're turning it into something that feels delightful, because it's taking something and the ego wants to say, let's fight, right? And the healed inner child says, no, let's not fight. Let's just play. Let's just play. Continuing to get clarification between our Emperor card in its reversal in combination with our Six of Swords in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Well, for the energy right now in separation, I need to point out this is the energy healing from the past connection. These are the energies healing from those past connections, because especially if there's too much volatility there, right? And this is happening on masculine and feminine in separation. Some of it might be like masculine being more in a space. And this is how, look at these. Can I just show you the card we pulled? Do you see how these energies are healing each other right now in separation? These are new energetic connections that are forming. Masculine coming towards feminine saying, I could have done better. I recognize places and spaces that I was not perfect. What is feminine reminding masculine in separation? Our job isn't to be perfect. Our job is to be accountable. There's no perfection. Perfection's an illusion. Accountability and assessment on what we could do better is the defining trait of healthy partnership, because it's the opposite of projection. So we see even now that a lot of that energy doing that work to a certain extent is healing. And in that modality, these aren't energies that are coming towards each other and being like, yeah, I don't know what happened. Everything from my past was perfect. I was aces. Let me tell you, it was them. They were crazy. Like, like a lot of that work, right? This is the energy saying like, no, like I'm still trying to work through what wasn't working there. I'm like, I can see energy being like, someone being like, I'm punishing myself because I'm trying to figure out what it was or what I could have done differently. And this is the energy that's healing by saying, again, perhaps that wasn't a situation. And this is feminine looking at masculine being like, perhaps that wasn't a situation wherein like that expectation is there. Maybe that was a modality. And I can see even now some of the masculine saying, I wasn't my authentic self in the past connection. Like this is heavy. And it's a lot like this is a lot of, for feminine, I see even now, like the difficulty with the feminine in separation is this is a lot of the feminine energy in separation that's building forth in an energetic connection with masculine in such a way that it feels restorative. But I have to stress this. This is because the indication that feminine is seeing in masculine coming towards feminine, this is not the feminine that sees the masculine coming towards feminine from a place of like profound, like, confidence. This is like the feminine building forth in a space of recognizing the masculine that's approaching them from the perspective or the point of view of the inner child, right? And the healed inner child is not one that's demanding. The healed inner child is not one that says, you have to play with me, right? The healed inner child is one that says, would you like to play? It's okay if you don't, right? It's like, and also like that space or place, like there's an easiness here. That's why there's a sense of, again, that sense of like, there's a lot of gentleness that I'm seeing in some of these new energetic connections that are forming. Thank you. Because these are the energetic connections of the recognition of appreciation, the articulation, the difference between appreciation and expectation is gratitude. Right? It's the gratitude. It's the ability of looking at something and saying, I am grateful for what you are giving me. And I recognize that that is a gift, that what you are giving me is a gift, and that is why I'm energetically grateful of it. And so I see even now there's something about the energetic connections that are happening right now with feminine working in the context of a masculine that's coming towards them in that way that is amplifying or healing. And this is why that healing for feminine is more painful, because the recognition of what it feels like when someone comes towards you from a place of appreciation, it doesn't fix the past, right? It doesn't fix the past. It clarifies it. It helps you see something in a different way. So we see even now there's different processes that are occurring as these energies are moving towards one another in separation. It's a little bit more difficult. I mean, for Matt, like it's hard for both energies right now, but in very different ways. For masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now, this is the recognition of it not feeling the way that you expected it to be. And again, same message, it's more triggering for the feminine. Well, and that's like, and again, even I want to say even deep within divine union right now, there's something here that's profoundly triggering. Because especially, and we spoke about this, if these are energies that are unpacking the past in different ways with energetic counterpart, like that ability or that appreciation point and being able to articulate something that you haven't been able to articulate before, it's heavy. Right? It's not easy. And I see even now, like there's a lot of that feeling of conciliation in relationality to one having to experience something or not. Like I see the energy being like, I wish I was there to, like, I wish I could have been there for you at that moment, you know? Continuing to get clarification between our Six of Swords in its reversal in combination with our Wheel of Fortune in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our death, like with our Death card in its reversal. I'm not surprised to see this card in this position either. Now you'll bear in mind we didn't get this card in our last reading, but a couple of days ago we got the same card in the same position. There's a stillness right now energetically. It's a contemplative retrograde. It's a very still retrograde. Things feel like they're not necessarily moving. Now, you know, again, how you experience that for some, it can feel frustrating, but the stillness allows for a little bit of introspection, if you will, right? And a lot of that is, again, like this is everything I kept having when the retrograde showed up, is like recognizing the hurdles, recognizing the obstacles. Remember, don't get frustrated if you recognize an obstacle within or outside of the self right now that you couldn't see. Because the first way you can overcome an obstacle is by recognizing it. So remember, that is not a frustration. It is a breakthrough. I got to point this out. Sometimes a breakthrough is just recognizing an obstacle, right? Like that's a breakthrough. Like we have a breakthrough, and that's why we say it can be a breakdown or a breakthrough. Be like, oh my God, like you know what I mean? It's like that, you know. A breakthrough is never like yay. Sometimes you're like, oh, you know. Continuing to get clarification right now between our Wheel of Fortune in its reversal in combination with our Seven of Wands in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Seven of Cups in its reversal. Don't get frustrated by the energetic hurdles right now. Get focused. Feel the appreciation in identifying what the obstacle is so that you can make the energetic choices that are necessary to allow for that amplification of change. And there's a lot of this change energy that I'm seeing here. There's a lot of this energetic change. And I see even now, like the only frustration that I see may be occurring right now, particularly as it relates to some of these retrograde cycles, especially if this is like the past kind of returning back, because we have a lot of that happens right now during retrograde cycles, that articulation of how much one has changed, the ability to look at something in a way that is different because of the amplification of how far one has come. We see even here, this is having a different impact across the frequencies. For masculine and feminine energy right now, this has to do with a lot of that perspective of looking at the past with different optics, right? And that ability of doing so being amplified in relationality to the arrival point of, again, making these energetic, like working through energetic choice and allowing, like I want to say even now, a lot of that energy of finding the self in the process of being in partnership that allows for that sense of like confidence, right? Because that arrival point is such that is the difference between what changes around the self versus that one's own sense of of recognition, between what feels like one can change outside the self versus what oneself, like who one finds oneself to be. Now, this is a lot of that energy deep within divine union that builds that point of appreciation with one another, because this is the energy that looks towards one another and says, I'm not demanding that change of you. I'm not seeking you to change in order to facilitate a connection with me. I validate and I value and I stand alongside your own energetic choices, because this is the energy that we effectively see and recognize and identify that articulates and amplifies that ability of feeling the confidence that we give one another as we're in healthy partnership. While for masculine and feminine energy right now coming into divine union, a lot of that work that we are identifying and recognizing to a certain degree, that ability of doing so, that work of having to build into the context of choice, but not necessarily doing it entirely on one's own. That context of coming into like building into that, like that happy medium, if you will, that we spoke so much about yesterday, doesn't feel the way that you might have expected it to feel. Because it's not about things always going the way that one intends at every step of the way. It's about finding that harmony, right? And building into that context of harmony, loving the energetic harmony that you create with another. That is the amplification of the prioritized partnership, because these are the energies that are learning to love harmonizing with one another. While for masculine and feminine energy in separation right now, a lot of that work, this is the energy that may be looking at a past connection and saying the reason there was a failure point between me and another connection was because it had to be their way or the highway. And so here I am on the highway. Like there's a lot of that energy going. There's a lot of energy I see building into connections right now being like, it was like their way or the highway. And so here you find me, because this is the energy saying like, I don't want to be here. Right? But this isn't the energy that says, I don't know how I got here. This is the energy that articulates the difference between moving towards a manifestation goal and being like, I didn't expect to be here. But there's always that vector in relationality to like what one is expecting versus what one arrives at. That like, this is the energy that says, I know exactly how I got here. And I see even now, like, this is the energy saying like, I accept, like that acceptance point, right? This is why the energy introspects on the past. Because the past does not define the energy and separation that's on the healing path work. It refines them. Right? And saying, I might not be where I want, but look, I got all these lessons I took. I got all these lessons I took on the way. I've got all these. Do you want one of these lessons? Like, I can help you. I've got a lot of lessons here. Maybe one of my lessons can help you. Continuing to get clarification between our Empress card in its upright and our Death card in its reversal. Look at these two counterparts right now. You got. Look at these beautiful cards right now that we're seeing in combination here, though. We've got the Emperor and the Empress, and the combination between the Empress and the Death card in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now. Page of Swords in its reversal. If this card looks familiar, it's because we had it in our reading yesterday. So a lot of this work that we're seeing, well, not yesterday, the day before yesterday, we had the Page of Swords coming up pretty heavily in our reads this week. So a lot of this work, I just keep hearing a lot of this energy saying, this is the energy, like this is the energy in separation, seeking energetic counterparts that are at peace. Why are these energies identifying and recognizing the energy that is at peace? Because a lot of this energy is absolutely over. Like, I see a lot of this energy absolutely over someone that's trying to run back into the past. I just see it even now. I see a lot of this energy saying, which direction are you going? Why are you here? Are you trying to run back into your past? Are you feeling locked out of your past? Or are you in the present? Are you recognizing and identifying that this, like, and I see even now, like, this is why so much of that energy here is working towards that facilitation point of identifying the energetic piece that they're building potentially with new counterparts. Because this is the energy that says, I am not, like, which direction are you looking? Like, this is the energy saying, like, I don't want you staring back there, like eyes here, right? Because that's a difference between when we hold too much regret and we look back and go, I shouldn't be here, I should be back there. We're saying, like, I'm denying my own energetic journey, right? The energy that's in the space of making peace with the past is saying, like, I understand and recognize that there may have been things that I could have done better, and I'm doing them better. That's why I'm here. Like I'm working on them. Like, we're actively working on them and recognizing that power of the presence. The present is the present. The present is the present. Because that ability of saying to oneself that this is what is, like, that modality of this being in the present. This is the energy saying, I'm looking for someone that exists in the present, isn't holding on energetically to the past, right? That ability of doing so. And I see even now, like, this is the energy that doesn't say to one another, I was perfect, right? This is the energy saying, I work in a space of gratitude for where I am. And I look back to the past, not because I want to run back there, but because it helps build my orientation on where I'm trying to go, right? Masculine and feminine coming into divine union. A lot of this work that we see right now, this is the work that is being facilitated upon and acted upon in relationality to recognizing and look, like, when you're in that space, you look back at the past version of self, and you go, got some notes, got some notes. But this is the energy that, again, is amplifying that sense or that space of saying to one another, our job isn't to be perfect. It's to be mindful. And as long as we are being, like, as long as we're taking energetic notes, these are the energy. This is why I see even now, like, the only difficult that I'm seeing is some of the energy right now is learning how to cooperate. I mean, it's a cooperation to a degree that's difficult because it's a stepping back, but also that feels like the gift that you're creating with one another. It's the difference between the ego that wants to step forth versus feeling that sense of healthy play. This is why children play so well. Good children play well when they don't, like, when their ego isn't interfering, right? So we see even now, like, a little bit of that work on the ego that's being navigated right now, and recognizing that an ego, you gotta, like, if you want a healthy relationship, you gotta be able to, like, let your ego go. Like, you gotta let go of that. You gotta let go of that ego. It's not going to serve you there. I mean, it's not saying that you can't be ego-less, but, like, working through in that way that it feels like it's energetically healthy is what's important there. Well, for a lot of this energy deep within divine union right now, I feel like this is the energy deep within divine union that's potentially dealing with those who have a harder time letting go of their ego. Like, there's a little bit of this work here of being like, like, that can, sometimes when you're in that space, you're like, it's hard, right? But even in that modality, I feel like I see some energy right now, and that's why I meant about the broader perspective is helping someone identify where their ego is causing a difficulty point versus keeping some kind of energetic perspective. Continuing to get clarification between our Death card and its reversal in combination with our Seven of Cups in its reversal. One card to clarify. Clarification coming through right now with our Two of Pentacles in its reversal. A lot of energetic choice here is what I'm seeing. A lot of that, it's like, for a lot of the energy in divine union, finding the right way to articulate a displeasure point is what I'm seeing. Right? Like I told you, a lot of this work that we're seeing during retrograde periods is understanding the energetic obstacle. So I see even now that a little bit of that space, like the gift that the counterparts give one another, is that ability to articulate an energetic displeasure point. As long as one's not in a space of taking it personally, but almost being energetically curious, like, I feel like this is the energy that, like, feels that sense of refinement because of the clarity that the counterpart provides in relationality to how one perceives it and how someone else perceives it. It's like, it helps you, like, kind of focus and put something into words to a certain extent, right? So I see even now, like that's like a focusing that's happening right now for the energy deep within divine union. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union, this is a lot of the energy that's learning on, they're learning on how to merge better, but they're learning how to merge by coming into that space of like, especially with the feminine wanting to move like being conscientious, and masculine wanting to like move more fast, like that ability of navigating a space in between that feels good for both. This is the energy that's working on collaboration that articulates upon the desire not to hold one's own side and feel like that tug of war, but coming into that state of like the like meeting in the energetic middle, if you will, that is the harmonization point of healthy partnership. While for masculine and feminine in separation right now, I keep seeing some energy right now being like, yeah, the reason I can't heal from something is because I wanted something to feel like collaboration, but instead someone was like, it was tug of war. Like, and that's what happens when we're either, and this is important to recognize because there's two different reasons that could happen. Either someone that is too operating too much from the place of the ego, that doesn't allow for collaboration in any context, right? Or when our manifestation goals don't match. And the identification point between whether that was coming from a state of the ego, right? The ego that resists because of an inflexibility point in building into trust with another, or whether that's because manifestation goals are different. This is why so much trauma gets built up from the past, because sometimes identifying what that could be can be very confounding. But a lot of the energy right now, and this is happening for both masculine and feminine, doing that unpacking and basically putting one's hands up and saying, you know what, it doesn't really matter. Like, this is the energy looking back at the past and going, I only think about it a little bit, because ultimately if the results are the same, the reasons why it doesn't change the circumstance or situation as one finds it, right? It requires that level or degree. And this is the energy that introspects upon it to make sure that their own ego wasn't the thing that was creating the disparity point, right? And if it was, this is energy that's like working to resolve that, because that's what we do when we're concentrated on finding the self instead of just being energetically right. And I see even now, like, the beauty that a lot of this energy is having in building some of these connections is someone saying, I don't care about being right. I care about what is right. That's the energy that goes, I care about what is right, not about being right. That is the difference. Final card for today's spread between our Page of Swords in its reversal in combination with our Two of Pentacles in its reversal. One card to clarification coming through right now with, and I like this, we've got here, this is beautiful, we've got our Five of Swords in its reversal. But here we see like that beauty in relationality to this is the past rising to the surface and immediately making peace with it, right? This is the look, you bring it up, like this is catch and release. You bring it, this is catch and release. You bring up the past, you look at it again, and then you let it go. You bring it up, you look at it again, what's in your net, there it is, let it go. There's a little bit of that work, and I have to stress, this is where the retrograde's like, you're welcome, because that ability of bringing something back up and looking at it and having a different insight, seeing something in a different way, it shows you how far that you've come. And that's happening across all of the frequencies right now. Just make sure that you're not being, and it's hard because I see even now, like being energetically triggered, I see that a lot of healing is potentially happening right now in this retrograde, because it's not about the past coming back to the surface. I just hear energy saying it doesn't affect me the same way. I don't feel like it does, like the energy saying it's like the ability of recognizing, being like, no, it's not that, it's like it just doesn't, like that impact point. Like, this is the energy that builds that appreciation in the recognition. And I see the energy saying, like, it's not that it doesn't feel like anything, because this isn't energy disassociating. This is energy that says, I accept that that's just a part of my path. And when we accept that something's a part of our path, we say, I've made peace with it. I can look at it because I've made peace with it. Bottom of the deck on this reading, 3 of Pentacles. New ground, man. This is like a lot of energetic new ground. And the problem with like new ground is like it always is hard because like new ground, depending on how you look at it, it either looks like a demolition site or a construction site. You know, like what do you see? Like what do you see in this? Like what do you see there? And that's why I want to say even now, and I need to articulate this. Don't building into that context or building into that space of recognizing and identifying that when we're able to address something in a way that it feels like something has changed, it creates the opportunity there to and that's what I meant about that's what we saw with reorientation. It's creating new ground to build, but can also feel triggering because it's a recognition of there's a lot of energy right now that's looking at the past, and this is masculine and feminine being yeah, that was my ego. You know what I mean? A little bit of that energy of the ego happening here. And it's having a different impact on masculine and feminine energy. For feminine energy, I see even now that some of that work, this is why feminine is focusing so much on not this is the energy of the feminine. I see almost being I have to have a hard look at the past because that ability of doing so builds a foundation for the present, right? It's requiring that level of introspection that's not easy, but it's significant, right? While for masculine energy, this is why I'm going to say again, masculine energy, working through letting go of the space of regret, building into that feeling of presence. Remember, okay? Feminine, you are getting stronger every day. Masculine, you are exactly where you need to be. You are exactly where you need to be. And focusing and articulating on those journeys. You don't build into that context of woulda, coulda, shoulda. Woulda, coulda, shoulda doesn't do anything, right? What are you going to do now? Let that focus you. We heal the past by defining the present from the lessons that we learned in it. So don't get lost in that exploration, but let it reaffirm your own commitment in the present, in the context. Thank you. So that is our daily collective read for today. I want to thank you guys so much for being here and experiencing it. Just a reminder, if you would like to book a private reading with me, you can book one on my website, gracestrega.com. My private readings are done over video, and if you are a subscriber to my TikTok, you can take 10% off any of my services when you pay. Just mention your subscriber name at the point of payment. Please keep in mind, if you want to book a private reading with me, it is a 2-step process. You have to book the reading, you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you'd like to have that reading. Most importantly, please remember that I will never, ever, 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 ever reach out to you for a private reading. I will never DM you. I will never PM you. I will never slide into your inbox and tell you that I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The only way you can book a reading with me is if you book one on my website. So I encourage you to do it there. Also, a couple of updates before we move into personal readings today. First and foremost, thank you to everyone who attended our recent tarot class on the Chariot. If you would like to attend our next class, it will be on Wednesday, December 18th at 6 p.m. PST. December 16th at 6 p.m. PST, 9 p.m. Eastern. If you would like to attend it, all you need to do is become a subscriber to my Substack, gracestrega.substack.com. Your paid subscription to my Substack is your ticket of entry into our classes each month. You will also have access to the full library of our previous classes. So if you've missed anything, you've got ample opportunity to catch up. There's about 8 hours worth of material that you will have as a subscriber to our class program. You will also have access to a one-on-one chat with me and the other students to ask any questions that you may have in relation to anything that we've learned thus far. And if you become a founding member to my Substack, not only will you receive a discount on the full year's worth of readings, but you will also receive a complimentary one-on-one mentorship class with me, wherein I will assess where you are on your own personal tarot journey and give you the best insights in terms of how to utilize both the classes and your own personal tarot practice to the best of your advantage to reach your tarot goals. One of the things I tried to do in these classes was make them accessible to the absolute novice tarot reader as well as the seasoned reader. There's definitely something there for everyone. So I want to thank you so much if you're just joining us there, and I look forward to potentially seeing you at our next class. And if you are a subscriber to my TikTok, head over to our subscriber-only Discord channel that you have as an additional perk for being a subscriber here. There you will find a special coupon code that will give you an additional discount on that Substack subscription. Even if you don't become a paid subscriber to my Substack, please follow me there because I post there our daily spread. So if you missed any part of the Daily Collective, you'll find it there as a podcast. I also post a photo of each day's spread there. I also post there my weekly newsletter, which will let you know about my in-person events as well as my live schedule each week. And we post our giveaways there. Speaking of giveaways, we are in the process of wrapping up our November giveaway. If you would like to potentially win a free private tarot reading with me, simply head over to the link tree in my bio. You will find a 2-minute travel survey there. Filling out that travel survey will grant you an entry into the giveaway. But if you would like to increase your chances of winning, go ahead and forward that survey to a friend, because when I pull the winner, I'll be gifting a reading not only to the person that wins, but also to the person that referred them. Finally, I want to let you guys know that on top of my standard life path readings, I also offer mentorship classes. These are classes that are for my clients that are seeking a more personalized educational experience with me. I take a very limited number of students for this reason. Those classes can be focused on whatever area of spiritual development or personal growth you are most invested in learning more about. They can be purchased on an individual level or as a monthly class series. That is 4 45-minute classes, weekly or bi-weekly as your schedule permits. Also, for my clients that are seeking more consistent weekly tarot support, I'm very happy to offer weekly tarot insight packages. That is a package of 4 45-minute, 30-minute readings, weekly or bi-weekly as your schedule permits, so that you can stay more consistent on your personal journey work. I want to thank you guys so much for being here today and sharing in these messages, and we will do this again